Welcome to The Fountain with Ellie Thomas. The fountain is an image that I use in my work often to speak of our multidimensionality, to connect with the life, the living water flowing within us through mind, body, spirit, heart, and all. This show is a place where we explore it all, where we tap into wisdom that has surfaced through pain and joy and the fullness of our journeys. This podcast is a place to come and remember, to sink back into the living water that flows within you and to be guided back to your fountain, your fullness, your wholeness, and how to be with that as we navigate living as divine humans in this wild, wild world and this wild, wild journey. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in together and be refreshed and consoled by the water that wants to flow through. Welcome back to The Fountain. The episode for this week has been here energetically all week, and yet I have really had a hard time knowing how to bring it out into words. I was just noticing today how I can feel the pulse of it, and when I'm outside and not in my home, it's just like right there, and then I get home to record and it feels not quite as present. And then today I walked out of my house for my morning walk with my dog, and I felt autumn here for the first time. The chilliness, the breeze, the light, the way the trees were moving and kind of the leaves shimmering in the wind, the feel, the crispness. And I also noticed how my hands, for the first time in months, were so cold on my walk, even though my body was warm. And as I was walking, I was like, oh, this is part of what's happening right now. We're really entering in to autumn. We're really getting to feel how the season is going to begin to work on us. And as I walked, I really felt called to lift up prayer. And my walks over the last few years have become just times of refuge for me. Some days that looks like active prayer time and just speaking my heart out loud to myself and to the trees and to God. And other days that looks like a more internal, just connecting and listening time and just receiving what's coming in. But today was one of the days where the desire to just be in prayer was very palpable. And so I'd like to open this episode with just a prayer that you can come back to and re-listen to if you'd like. I do want to say I am going to use the word God. If that is not a word you use or you don't want to listen to this, feel free to fast forward. But prayer for me has become a way that I can begin to unload all that is within me. It's very easy for me to accumulate. And I feel like that's where we're at right now. This very brisk feeling of the true arrival of autumn and how it will work on us. The message that's coming with it is you have been full. You are filled to the brim. And in the seasons that come, it is time, it will be time to begin to empty. And what we may be holding and what we may be full of may have been there for years, maybe for lifetimes. Maybe it's just what's been there this year or this past season, but I have this feeling, and I think this is why this episode feels so alive when I'm out in my car or moving in the world, is that there's this sense of just we have been in accumulation accidentally for a long time, partly just because we've never had the invitation and the space to truly release. But in this collective process of coming back to our core and coming into a greater in personal and global transformation, we have to allow ourselves to release. And it is scary. It is so scary. Oh, it just feels like we're being, our clothes are being removed and our nakedness, our nudity, our most bare parts could be exposed. And so coming back to the prayer, I just felt the desire to offer a prayer and a way of prayer that can help each of us in our days come back to being present with exactly where we are and exactly what is in this moment. And I think it was last year, I just started praying like this as I'd walk. I would just offer everything that was stirring in my heart, in my mind, my needs, my desires, my worries, my pain, my joys, just one by one, speaking it out loud and offering it up. And with each of these things that I would speak and offer up would be this prayer of, God, help meet me in this, help carry this for me. I trust that you are moving in this. And in this trust, it liberates me to be able to be fully here exactly where I am as I am in my life today. It allows me to see what I need to see and feel what I need to feel. It allows me to show up in the ways that I'm called to show up. You see, when we are filled to the brim, we don't even realize how full we are and how much lack of fluidity there is. And it becomes normal. It has become normal to just be holding so much energy, so much emotion, so much experience, so much that we're seeing. We just have become accustomed to being full, and yet that fullness starts to kind of flatten our ability to really meet the present moment and to really show up for what's here. And this slow emptying and this slow shedding that comes with autumn, that whether it begins inside of us and moves towards the outside or begins outside of us and penetrates us and moves into the heart, is what is needed to really feel deeply connected to life again. So there are many ways that the shedding happens and moves in our lives, in our hearts. Many ways I work with this within myself and within my practice and with clients. And then this prayer is just one of those ways, and I'd like to invite you in to experience it. It's subtle and yet profound. And each time that we can offer up what has been filling us, we can offer up and speak specifically to the things that are filling us currently, we begin to get a taste for what it's like to really release in a soft way. And release is not always soft, but in this way of prayer, it can be soft. And it also gives us a taste of like what a moment of emptiness is like. And there's just this deep sigh of relief, like, oh, okay, I'm here. I can be here. I can be in this. I can meet this moment. So here's how the prayer usually goes, and you can join me. I won't use too many personal specifics. I love to do this in movement. So if you're in movement, whether in your car or walking, just offer up your own things as I'm speaking. And if you're seated and silent or lying down, also just offer up your own things and let the prayer be active in you in the way that you feel called to allow it to be. So, oh God, thank you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for the brisk air and all that is changing in this transitional season. I offer you everything I am holding. I offer you the worries of my heart, the tenderness I hold for my loved ones. Please meet them where they need to be met and take my worries so that I don't need to hold them anymore. God, I offer you my desires, my excitement for what is to come. Thank you for these beautiful and precious things. I lift them up to you today so that I can release myself from needing to be in charge of the timelines. I can release myself from needing to push or force, from needing to make anything happen that is not in my control. I think of the people that might be incorporated in these dreams and desires, and I lift up prayers to them that they be met by you today how they need to be. I ask that you join us together in perfect timing. I trust that you know the timing better than I do. I lift up my needs, the needs of my family. Meet us in our needs, God. I lift my needs up to you so that I don't need to carry what I cannot meet. I trust you can meet me in these places, God. I trust that you can carry and tend to my needs with love, so that when they arise, I can also tend to them with love in the ways that I am capable. I lift up the needs of my family, the needs of the loved ones around me. I lift up their needs, which I do not know, even if I think I do. Please take them, God. Meet my loved ones in their needs in the most palpable and loving of ways. Again, I offer you the timeline of these needs. I offer you the timeline of the things that I wish would happen or I think need to happen. And I surrender them once again, knowing that I don't really know. I offer you my fears today, God. Oh, I lift my fears up to you. Not trying to get rid of them, not trying to push them away, just asking for you to help me hold them so that I am not overwhelmed by them. Come and meet me tenderly, lovingly in my fears. Hold them so that I can tend to them without being overwhelmed. Help me feel what it might be like to be without them for a moment. I lift up my health, my body, my energy, all to you, God. May I not need to carry any burden related to any of these right now. Instead, may I be free to just be here, taking in this beautiful day that has been gifted to me. In this freedom, may I feel more able to meet what you are offering back to me. May I feel more able to meet what is knocking and asking to be seen and heard and met. God, I offer all of this to you and more, not to get rid of it, not to push it away, but to just be able to move as I am today, to meet this day fully, to remember the energy that's alive within me, to remember the vibrancy that I carry. Thank you for being a place where I can offer the currents of my mind, my body, my heart, my soul. Guide me and attune me to what is most important today. And if you feel like you have more that you need to just unload and release or name more specifically than I am able to do for you, just hit pause and take a few moments to do that. Often when I'm praying in this way, it's easy when I'm walking. It just feels like I'm lifting the prayers up to the heavens, up to the trees. When I'm seated here, every one that I offer up, I just feel my hand just wanting to lift it up. So feel free to use your whole body. It says each one kind of bobs to the surface of your heart, of your mind, of your lips. Just offer it up. Part of this process of what's happening, I feel like we're being called and invited into learning how to be with emotion differently. And I love the vision of a fountain for thinking about how we move with and process emotion. Emotion being the water that is or wants to flow through one of the waters that flows through, at least. And how if a fountain and its pipes are clogged, nothing can flow. If there's rocks stuck in there or blockages of leaves or anything else just cutting off the circulation, it creates these bulges in places that we don't want. It stops the natural state of the fountain. It halts its natural function. And when we think about ourselves as vessel for emotion, and this is again tapping into another nuance of emotion as energy, when we allow ourselves to become vessels for emotion, which in this world takes a lot of practice because we've been really conditioned and taught, often silently, to cut off what's coming through. And I just want to be really clear when I'm speaking about this, I'm really speaking about tending to emotion in a really mature way. And it does take time to really move into that maturity. But this is not permission to unload emotion in an unhealthy way on somebody or to blow up at somebody. This is a call to really learn that if we allow ourselves to be a vessel for emotion to move through, if we learn to open our bodies to the energy and just really be with it, we can ride the wave and it really does whatever it needs to do and then it's done. And that exact same emotion may come again and again and again in different moments, but it doesn't stagnate. And I think part of what we've been holding for all of these, well, potentially lifetimes, as I said, but really for the last few years, even more so, is just immense amount of emotion that we are terrified to be with. And we are so naturally taught that it is not safe and that we will not be loved or seen, cannot be witnessed wholly in that state, or that it is shameful to feel certain ways. We have learned so palpably to cut off this flow in us. And relearning how to align with your inner fountain to allow emotion to flow might be a slow process, but it can look like simply using the breath and the body as not only anchor points, but information about what's happening. A word that I use a lot when I notice I'm constricting or when I notice just like constriction around me is crunchiness, how we just clench and hold. And one of the images that came to me when I was thinking about this is it's like allowing a marble to travel across a piece of paper completely and just to make its way across a flat and open piece of paper versus the marble being introduced to the paper and then hands coming up around the paper and crinkling it all around the marble. And then in the process of trying to flatten it out, like when we crinkle it fully, the marble can't move, right? It's stuck. And when we are in the process of trying to smooth it out, it still might get stuck, and that's okay. But it's a very tender process. And the way we learn to release our inner paper is really at first by acknowledging. Well, before that, we need to be aware. I was in a community class in a membership that I was in maybe like 6 months ago, and she was a network spinal chiropractor, and she said something about the 3 A's. And I was like, which 3 A's are those? And she said awareness, acknowledgement, and acceptance. And when I thought about it, I was like, oh yeah, these are the 3 A's that I work with all of the time. I didn't even know that I was connecting to those words, but creating awareness first of the places that we're tightening, the places that we're clenching, the constriction, the emotion that we're holding in, even what an emotion feels like and which emotions feel certain ways. It takes time of getting to know ourselves, of really slowing down enough to feel. And if we don't slow down enough to feel, what tends to be the case is that we become full, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, and then something breaks the dam for us when we're cosmically ready, even though we will not feel ready. And then the water just pours out, whether we want it to or not. And in that process, we may become forced to become aware because we're often forced to stop. But we also have the opportunity to become aware just as we are right now. To use the breath as an anchor and self-inquiry as the anchor, and hand on heart moments of closing the eyes and just saying, okay, what is going? I'm feeling this clenching in my abdomen, in my throat, in my eyes. I'm feeling my energy go, ugh. Can I breathe into this? Just ask. What's happening? I feel like maybe we're not even supposed to get to acknowledgement today. We're just supposed to be in the playfulness of awareness, of building awareness. As I've been sharing about this upcoming grief flow workshop, something that's been in the back of my mind is people have no idea how much grief they're holding. They probably see and read and hear about this workshop and are like, wow, that's really cool for the people that need it. And just this feeling of grief is one of the emotions that we have become so conditioned to disconnect from that we don't even know what it feels like. We don't even know that we have it and hold it. I totally get it. I was in that space for a lot of my 20s, and in my early 30s is when I really was gifted the words, Ellie, this is grief. Whether it be anticipatory grief or another type of grief, whether somebody be dead or alive, whether you understand it or not, this is grief. And I've had the pleasure of offering those words so many times to friends and clients, like, I think this is grief. And when it hits, it's like this whole system recalibration of like, whoa, oh my gosh, it is. And we become aware in that moment of, again, all of it that we're holding. But until someone can say that to us, we don't even know. The beauty of the work of awareness is it opens us to a whole new world. It's not always easy. It's not always fun. And yet in this season where I have a feeling we're going to be feeling a lot of contractions, because what happens when we're not used to releasing and we have so much is that we will resist and fight against that release with everything we have because it is terrifying. So in this feeling, my sense is that we'll be feeling our systems extra quick to clench, to hold in, to try and stop, and to kind of cap off our flow of emotion in a way of protection, as a way of protection, trying to keep us safe. When our system does this, it's really important and necessary that we see it with compassion and say, oh, okay, there is fear here. This feels very vulnerable. This is what I have deemed in another moment of my life a threat to my survival. I have learned that this is going to or could bring me down. And therefore, my system has gotten so good at protecting me. Yeah, wow. There's just so much around the opening of awareness around this that is available to so many more people right now. That it's not even time to touch into acknowledgement. It's just about this process of sitting here, noticing the contraction, and then allowing breath to travel down, down, down into your pelvis, and to relax and open your pelvis, and to breath to travel up, up, up to your throat and out through your head. And then to recenter the breath back to the heart and just feel your inner channel open. Feel the places of constriction that have held so tightly before, and then come into awareness and curiosity around, and what would it feel like to simply breathe in this moment and to let what I'm feeling truly move through. When we open our bodies this way with our breath really gently, sometimes when I'm doing this, a wave, let's say the other day, a wave of fear came over me, a wave of fear of what somebody else might think of me, a specific person in my life. And this anxiety energy at first trying to talk me out of it. Like, no, they love you. It's okay. And that's also my own protection mechanism. And that's also something really important to become aware of. We are great at just talking ourselves out of those things, but then we just loop in the fear and then that inner response over and over and over again. It's beautiful to say those things to ourselves. There's nothing wrong with it, but we often actually don't get to move beyond it when we do that. And sometimes we need to be with the whatever's being kind of rubbed against underneath to really open things to move through. And so I was feeling kind of this agitated energy, and I was washing the dishes, and just like these thoughts were going crazy in my mind about swirling so much about how this person probably thinks I'm a fraud and blah, 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 blah. And then I just caught myself like, whoa, okay, what if I just stopped and stood here for a moment? I shut off the water as I was washing dishes and I just stood at the sink and held on the counter. Oh, and said, okay, I can open. I can open. I can open my body to just experience this moment of fear, knowing I am here, safe in my house. It's very possible that person doesn't even think those things, but this fear is real for me. So as I stand here with my feet grounded, I just closed my eyes, began to let my breath move slowly, slowly, slowly into my pelvis, into my root, just opening. And with the exhale, just letting it relax. And then doing it again. And then letting my breath move up from my heart to my throat. Oh, just letting my throat open. Letting my breath move through my head and up and out the top of my head. And then I just sat there and said, okay, fear, I can let you move through. I don't want to store you in my body or in my mind, in my heart. Can I just feel this a little bit more, a little bit deeper? And there are certain emotions or pieces that might come, energies that might come, that might bring a lot of tears or might want to come with a physical expression or a verbal expression or a movement of some kind. And there are others where we'll just kind of feel it wave through and just here's where the acknowledgement comes in. Yeah, I am afraid. It is okay. I can let this fear move through me. This is an understandable fear from a primal sense, fearing that this person that loves me might feel these ways about me creates and connects me to these loops of rejection, of fear of being, disconnected from people that I love. And that is so understandable to feel that. And only from here can we really tap into embodied acceptance, which, there's the whole workshop coming up on this if you feel called to it. This acknowledgement really opens us to see, okay, they might think that. In my case, this other person might actually feel that way. And maybe they don't. But if they do, I'm still okay. I can still receive love. I can still love. And we can spend so much more time with that, which we're going to do in the workshop. So I'm not going to go into it now. Today's message is really about this practice of grounding ourselves in the body to become the fountain through which emotion can move. And when we begin to do this, what's really interesting, we just do it with what's present to us in the moment first. It's like what's at the top, what's filling the basins of the fountain and like blocking things has to be what comes first. It's not even what's in the depths of the blockages. And over time, as we learn to do this and learn to let things move through, there's space for, sometimes I call like the bubbles of our past, the things that we clenched so hard that they couldn't move through, and therefore we stored them in our energy, we stored them in our bodies, we stored them as stories in our minds. What's stuck in us slowly begins to dislodge. But as we've been in the practice of just meeting what's here right now in the moment, what's meeting what's alive for us now, we have become fortified enough slowly over time, have learned how to be with those things when they arise too. And oftentimes we still need support for those things because those things can be big, whether it be with a therapist, with a coach, in a community space, in, journaling, writing. There's so many ways to kind of be with those things as they move. But as the kind of deep inner gunk that's been lodged in us starts to surface over time, and the like big cleansing is happening, we're really starting to empty out and release more and more. Don't overlook support if you feel like you need it. This process starts with where you are now. It starts with feeling your body when you're in the car driving, when you're walking. It is the re-embodiment from ways we have become disembodied. It is, ooh, that noise just made me flinch or clench. Ooh, this person's presence brings something up here. Oh, this thing that I'm reading is creating this feeling in me. The things on the outside of us are only reflecting what's there inside of us, and usually when that's happening, what's ready to be worked with. And the body is the way to start here. Awareness and observance. Awareness might be the only thing that's available to you right now. Okay, I'm feeling something. Can I just take a breath? And just pause for a moment. And then with time, do I have space to ask what's really happening within me? And usually there are layers here. At first, it'll be like, I'm feeling this because this is happening, or this person is coming. And then slowly, this is something that I've become very good at with myself and people, is just sensing into the layers. But don't worry about the layers right now. Just go with what's right there. And once the awareness comes, offer the acknowledgement of, oh, you're feeling this. That's okay. That's really understandable. And then take another breath and see what happens in your body. See if any opening is available. You can ask, how able am I to be with this right now? Could I offer this a moment of space? I'm getting this imagery of like A river carrying tons of leaves and blossoms and petals from flowers, like things that have moved in the air and then fallen into the river. And the river is just on the top, full of small little things. And we just get to practice with those small little things. And with time, maybe the river carries an entire tree trunk that has been, upstream or downstream. I always get those two confused. But this tree trunk, arrives and then it kind of gets stuck in the rocks of the river in a shallow moment and place. And maybe that's a place where we're like, okay, need some help here, need some support. There's some big things moving. But we get to practice first with just the petals and the leaves that are moving on the top. There's no need to force ourselves to go to anything bigger, harder, or overwhelming. I feel like this awareness, acknowledgement, and then acceptance, it's like a workshop in and of itself. It is this is a session in and of itself. But this is what we are being asked and being invited into in this season. This is a season where we get to experience emotional stewardship in a different way. Whereas new layers of transformation, new cycles of transformation begin to open, the tools that will guide us through them are appearing right here with the season. I could spend hours in silence just guiding you through this. And if you feel called to that, if you're ready for that, please book a session with me and let's explore this for you. This is very powerful. This is stuff that we should be taught when we are young, and hopefully now kids are. But there is so much to be with and to hone into here. Part of it is the practice, the vulnerable practice of just meeting the moment and being in this awareness, living in this awareness. And not needing the awareness to be something that catapults us into fixing anything. Instead, just being in the process of the awareness and then being in the process of letting our breath open us and then seeing what's ready to move and happen. The fixing comes from the mind. It is, again, a place of protection. It is a deeming of something is wrong. When these things happen in us, there's nothing wrong. It doesn't necessarily feel good, but it is usually happening for a reason. And it may not be how you want to keep living, but you don't have to. And this is a starting point. So I'm going to leave you here. There's so much to sink into in this episode. If you're listening on Spotify and something comes up for you and you want to respond to the "what did you think" box, feel free to send a message there. I do get those. I would love to read or hear from you in any other way. Please consider the Grief Flow workshop if it calls to you even 1%. It is beautiful. We will be in this process of just allowing ourselves to be in the body and opening to awareness and to this flow. And I will be back with you soon for more fountain flow goodies, just tapping into the current of what's alive and here and available to all of us. Thank you so much for listening to The Fountain. Please take a moment to rate and review the show and to send it along to a friend that comes to heart or mind. I'd also love to hear what came up for you and your experience listening to the most recent episodes. So reach out via your podcast app or send me an email. And if you'd like to book your first session or explore working together more, find me at ellieflow.com.